1942 was the year the United States nearly ran out of aircraft carriers. Not damaged carriers, not carriers temporarily pulled back for fuel or repairs. Actual flight decks, the hard steel runways that made the Pacific War possible, disappeared one after another. 4 fleet carriers lost in 12 months. Lexington, Yorktown, Wasp, Hornet. A collapse so severe that for a moment the entire Pacific War rested on a single flight deck, and each loss meant more than a name crossed out on a Navy list. It meant fewer fighters over Marines on beaches, fewer bombers searching for enemy fleets, fewer ships able to strike first in an ocean war where distance was everything. USS Wasp was one of those losses, a ship that went down fast, went down deep, and then vanished for 77 years. So the question is simple. Why is she still there? Because the answer is not just about depth. It is about design compromises, wartime desperation, a submarine's perfect shot, and the way navies remember the dead. USS Wasp, CV-7, was the odd one out. Built under the final scraps of treaty tonnage, she was smaller than Yorktown and Enterprise, carried less fuel, and lacked the torpedo protection system the Navy desperately wanted. She was a compromise, a carrier built because the treaty allowed it, not because the design was ideal. Everyone knew her limitations. Her reduced displacement meant thinner armor. Her machinery spaces were more exposed. Her aviation fuel system was vulnerable. Those weaknesses mattered, because when the torpedoes came, they found exactly the places the designers had been forced to leave unprotected. This was not incompetence, it was arithmetic. The Washington and London naval treaties limited how much carrier tonnage the United States could build, and Wasp was created to use what remained. She had to be useful enough to fight, small enough to fit the treaty slot, and cheap enough in weight to exist at all. Every ton saved somewhere meant risk accepted somewhere else. But compromised ships still go to war. Wasp had a flight deck, an air group, trained crews, and the one thing the Navy could not manufacture quickly in 1942. Time. She was not perfect, but she was available. In that year, availability was almost the same as strength. Wasp's war didn't begin in the Pacific. It began in the Atlantic, and in one of the strangest missions any American carrier ever flew. 2 Spitfire ferry runs to Malta. Operation Calendar in April 1942. Operation Bowery in May. Churchill himself joked that Wasp can sting twice, and she did, delivering the fighters that kept Malta alive. Those missions gave Wasp a strange kind of fame before she ever entered the carrier battles she is remembered for today. She was an American ship launching British fighters to defend a Mediterranean island under constant Axis air attack. For a brief moment, her job was not to fight a carrier duel, but to keep a besieged airfield alive. Then everything changed. In June 1942, she was ordered to the Pacific, arriving at the exact moment the Guadalcanal campaign was devouring carriers faster than the United States could replace them. Lexington gone at Coral Sea, Yorktown gone at Midway, Enterprise damaged, Hornet damaged, Saratoga torpedoed and under repair. Wasp sailed into a crisis, a Navy fighting for its life with almost no carriers left. By late summer, Guadalcanal had become the center of the war. The island's airfield, later called Henderson Field, threatened Japanese movement through the Solomons. Whoever controlled it could strike ships, protect convoys, and shape the campaign. That made every carrier sortie precious and every carrier loss catastrophic. Wasp's aircraft were part of that shield. They flew patrols, guarded convoys, and helped keep Japanese pressure away from the Marines ashore. In the Solomons, a carrier did not have to be attacking to be essential. Sometimes simply being close enough to launch fighters changed what the enemy could risk. The attack came without warning. Japanese submarine the Sech-19 fired a spread of 6 torpedoes. 2, possibly 3, slammed into Wasp's port side. It was one of the most devastating torpedo spreads of the war. The remaining torpedoes did not simply vanish into open water. One struck the battleship USS North Carolina, and another damaged the destroyer USS O'Brien, which later sank from the damage. In one firing, I-19 wounded 3 American ships across a wide formation. The hits detonated aviation fuel. Fire raced through the hangar deck. Bombs and torpedoes stored for the next strike began to cook off. Damage control teams fought the flames, but the ship was lost within minutes. The worst damage came from what Wasp carried inside herself. A carrier was not just steel and engines. She was aviation gasoline, bombs, torpedoes, lubricants, oxygen bottles, ammunition, and aircraft packed into a floating airfield. Once fire reached those spaces, the ship became almost impossible to save. The explosions also cut through the systems that were supposed to save her. Power failed. Communications broke down. Water mains ruptured, robbing hose crews of pressure when they needed it most. Smoke filled compartments faster than men could move through them. The battle for the ship became a battle fought in fragments, by isolated teams trying to do damage control in a carrier already tearing itself apart. 193 men were killed. The destroyer USS Lansdowne was ordered to scuttle her. The Navy would not leave a fleet carrier afloat for the Japanese to study. Wasp slipped beneath the surface at 11 degrees 45 minutes south, 164 degrees 28 minutes east, descending to nearly 14,000 feet, deeper than almost any American carrier wreck. There was no dramatic final stand, no long night of rescue attempts and counter-flooding. Wasp died in daylight in front of escorts that could do little more than pull survivors from the sea and watch the flames consume a ship the Navy badly needed. Survivors went over the side into a sea streaked with fuel and debris. Some climbed down lines, others jumped because there was no other choice. Around them, destroyers maneuvered in submarine-infested waters, rescuing men while still watching for the possibility of another torpedo track. Wasp's loss wasn't just another ship gone, it was a strategic disaster. With Wasp sunk and Saratoga under repair, Hornet was the only fully operational American carrier left in the South Pacific, the last undamaged fleet deck still able to fight. That was the consequence of losing Wasp. Not just a ship, but the margin between survival and defeat. For the sailors and aviators who survived, the loss was immediate and personal. For planners in Washington and Pearl Harbor, it was terrifyingly mathematical. The United States had industrial power coming, but it had not arrived yet. The Essex-class carriers that would flood the Pacific were still months away from changing the balance. In September 1942, there was no surplus. There was only endurance. That is what makes Wasp's sinking so much larger than a single shipwreck. It came during the narrowest part of the American carrier war, after early victories had been won but before American production could dominate the Pacific. The Navy knew more carriers were coming. It just had to survive long enough for them to arrive, to grow. Wasp fell into darkness, 14,000 feet of it. For 77 years she remained missing. The depth made her unreachable. The sinking coordinates were approximate. Deep ocean searches require precision, and the technology to find a wreck that deep simply didn't exist for decades. The ocean protected her from discovery as effectively as armor ever could. At that depth, sunlight never arrives. Human divers cannot operate. Pressure is measured in thousands of pounds per square inch. Finding Wasp required not only knowing where to look, but having robotic systems capable of searching huge areas of seabed and then filming a wreck in total darkness. She became one of the great lost carriers of the Pacific War, a ship known only by the place she vanished. That is why so many famous wrecks remained missing long after their histories were known. The record could tell historians when a ship disappeared. Survivor accounts could describe flames, explosions, and the direction of the wind. But the deep sea does not give up exact positions easily, especially when wartime coordinates were recorded under stress and across moving formations. For families, that uncertainty lasted a lifetime. Wasp had a date of loss, a list of dead, and a place on the map, but no visible grave. The wreck existed in official records and survivor memories, not in photographs from the seabed. Until the 21st century, the ocean still held the final proof. January 14th, 2019. Paul Allen's research vessel R.V. Petrel, the same team that found Lexington, Juneau, Indianapolis, and others, located Wasp in the Solomon Islands. The wreck was largely intact, the flight deck recognizable, her hull upright on the seafloor. The images were haunting because they made the story physical again. A gun mount, a section of deck, aircraft debris, the shape of a carrier that had existed for decades only in photographs, reports, and memory. The wreck was not recovered, and it did not need to be. The discovery answered the historical question: where did Wasp go? The discovery did not change the past, but it changed how the past could be seen. Instead of a burning carrier in grainy wartime photographs, Wasp became a silent wreck on the bottom. Upright, recognizable, and still carrying the outline of the ship her crew had known. It turned history back into a place. She is a war grave at 14,000 feet, untouched, unreachable, and preserved by the cold, oxygen-poor water. Wasp cannot be raised. She cannot be visited by divers. She sits in permanent darkness deeper than almost any other American carrier ever lost. The only images of her come from ROV footage captured during the 2019 expedition. She is still there because the depth makes recovery impossible. She is still there because she is a designated war grave. And she is still there because 193 men went down with her or died as a result of the sinking. Raising a ship like Wasp would not be a matter of attaching cables and hauling upward. She lies under miles of water, weakened by battle damage, explosions, corrosion, and decades on the seabed. Any attempt to lift her would risk destroying the wreck, scattering remains and violating the purpose of leaving war graves undisturbed. The Navy does not disturb its war graves. Wasp will remain exactly where she is, at 14,000 feet, for as long as the ocean holds her. So the real answer is layered. The sea keeps her there by force. The law keeps her there by protection. And memory keeps her there by choice. Modern technology can find her. It can film her. It can map her. But it cannot make the old questions simple. Discovery is not recovery. Identification is not ownership. A wreck like Wasp is not a treasure site or a salvage project. It is a battlefield left in place. In 1942, the United States lost 4 fleet carriers in a single year, a crisis that nearly broke the Pacific Fleet before the war was decided. Wasp was one of those losses. She arrived in the Pacific at the worst possible moment. She survived barely 2 months on station before I-19 found her. She went down fast. She went down deep. And for 77 years, she stayed missing. When RV Petrel found her in 2019, she was exactly as she had been left, intact, dark, and unreachable. She is still there because the ocean is too deep to raise her. She is still there because the law protects her as a war grave. And she is still there because 193 men are still aboard her. That is not a tragedy with a resolution. That is simply where she is. And maybe that is why her story still matters. Wasp was not the biggest carrier, the strongest carrier, or the most famous. She was a compromise ship sent into a desperate campaign because every deck counted. She fought where she was needed, died where she was struck, and remains where history left her. So, when we ask why USS Wasp is still there, the answer is not that she was forgotten. It is the opposite. She is still there because she has been remembered correctly as a ship, a grave, and a warning from the year the carrier war almost slipped away.